them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, another crazy night in the NHL last night. Some teams you would expect to win or that really need to win did not. I want to start off right up in Buffalo, where the Ottawa Senators lost 3-2, Pierre. This Senators team, about I'd say 10 days ago, everyone was sort of jumping on that bandwagon, and they were on a nice little win streak. They had got into the first wild card slot. And since then, it's just kind of been 500 hockey up and down. What's your take on them so far since then?
They're just a young team still learning, and they're counting on Claude Giroux to be one of the guiding lights. He's been up and down just like the rest of the team. I don't think Brady's 100% healthy. I know he scored a power play goal last night, but they need him healthy. Defense still on the right side. I said it to you a long time ago. They got a big flaw on the right side of their defense. They're just not deep enough. So it's a good team. It's not an elite team. And so this is what happens in this league when you don't have an elite or a better than a good team. So a very good team. If you don't have a very good team to an elite team, it's hard to win with consistency. It really is. It's really hard.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then the other one I'm looking at, Pierre, is the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that we just can't seem to figure out. I mean, sometimes we look at their goaltending. I don't think that was necessarily the main issue last night, but just they start to show signs that they're going to go on a streak, and then they don't, and they lay an egg. And that is happening too much at this time of year for a team like the Hurricanes.
But this is the one thing I'll say about Carolina in defense of them. Don't judge them on the regular season. This is a referendum on analytics in the playoffs.
Okay.
Don't judge them on a regular season. They're going to be a playoff team.
Yep.
So now it comes down to how deep are they going to go and how good are they going to be.
Yep.
And we'll find out. We'll find out in the playoffs. They're one of the teams that I'll say to everybody that's kind of prejudging them, Jimmy, don't do that with them because it doesn't matter what they do. They're going to make the playoffs. Right. See what they do in the playoffs. If they kick butt, analytics worked. If they don't kick butt, it's a referendum on analytics. And some of these teams better give their head a shake. If it works, I'll apologize. If it doesn't work, we warned you last year. That's all I'll say.
And we're going to get to the game that I know a lot of our viewers and listeners were watching last night. St. Louis puts a whipping on Montreal. But before we do that, Winnipeg and Washington, heavyweight battle there. Winnipeg wins 3-2 in overtime, but Alexander Ovechkin gets another goal, inching closer to Gretzky's record. And it got me thinking. I was prepping for the show here today, Pierre. I wanted to ask you just a random question. Do you remember the first time you saw him play?
Yep. He was a kid. I think he was 14 years old in Toronto. Might have been 15. I think he was 14. Where he really stood out, though, I remember the 2003 World Junior was in Halifax. Mm-hmm. He was 16. You're like, okay, this is a different level of player for that age. Just his size, his power, his ability to shoot the puck. It was at a level I hadn't seen any 16-year-old be able to do that. He looked like an NHL player. I mean, he looked like he could play in the league.
Do you think, are you surprised that, with the style he plays, the tenacity he plays with every shift, that health-wise, he was able to survive this long?
Physical freak. Both his parents, elite athletes, both of them big people. Mother, basketball player, father, a soccer goalie. Elite athletes, international athletes for the USSR. When USSR really in sport, they were a superpower. Mm-hmm. So the athletic gene pool is clearly there for him. But again, I talk about the physical size and power. I remember talking to the former general manager in Washington, George McPhee, and I said to George, what's the one thing that's weirdo about Ovechkin? Like, what separates him? Because I could name 5. He says, Pierre, he's so powerful in his skating. Right. At one time in practice, he went to turn to corner. The rivets in his skates ripped right out. Like, players need to fix their rivets. Yeah. But not when they're making a turn in a practice. And when George told me that, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty amazing. That's a great display of how powerful he truly is.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, and there was a clip of him before the game last night, and obviously his teammate Jacob Chychrun. By the way, we never spoke about that signing. Chychrun gets extended there for 8 years, $72 million. But Pierre, he's congratulating him, and he starts singing with him and dancing around, and he's just got that fountain of youth still. I mean, it's amazing.
I don't think he changed. That's his personality.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, again, early on, George was a GM in Washington, and we did a lot of Washington games at NBC and at TSN. We did a lot of Washington games, and George would sometimes allow my partner and I, Gord Miller at the time, to ride on their charters. And even on those charters back then, Ovi was funny. He's all get out. He really was. He had a really good sense of humor, and he was funny. And the one thing that doesn't get talked about enough now, because he's going to get the record, and the guy that really helped for good portions of that was Nicky Backstrom, and Nicky's not there anymore. And the relationship those two guys had was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Nicky was as underrated a playmaker as there was in the league for a long time. And his presence on the power play, all those devastating Ovechkin one-timers on the power play, a lot of those seams opened up because people knew they had to overplay on Backstrom. And if they didn't, then it was either going to Ovechkin for a one-timer or the right-handed shooting John Carlson for a one-timer, or maybe even Oshie in the high slot in kind of a full bumper position. So I, as a hockey person, I don't see Nicky around, and that breaks my heart because Jimmy, he wasn't just a great player. He's a phenomenal. Nick Backstrom's an amazing person. Really, really special.
Which radio show I was listening to recently, though, they're going to make sure he's around, when he has a chance to.
Well, they should. And I'm not surprised. Look at, the one thing about the Capitals, I think they've got a first-class group that's running that group, whether it's Brian McClellan or Chris Patrick, the general manager. And I think since, 2018, they were good for a long time. David Paul, George McPhee. But after they won the cup, that franchise went to a whole other level.
Yeah.
They were no longer the guys that got sand kicked on them all the time in the playoffs. Their fan base felt better. They didn't like, oh, woe is me. They started to get some moxie, and I really appreciated that. I like the way their fans carried themselves.
Yep.
I really like the way their organization's been run. I've talked to you about it ad nauseum. Mm-hmm. They've done a really good job with their group. They deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah.
And so, I think things changed there after 2018 in a good way, not a bad way.
Yeah, for sure. Great point. All right. The game last night, Pierre, that a lot of us were watching was the St. Louis Blues hosting Montreal Canadiens. Both teams fighting for their wild card lives. We're going to get in depth in a bit here with our good friend Andy Strickland from St. Louis there. He's going to be joining us shortly. But just your initial reaction to that, Pierre, as I'm watching the game unravel, I'm just like, the Habs just ran into a buzzsaw here. I mean, sometimes it happens, and I'm not trying to excuse them. They need to correct a lot of things that they did wrong last night. But at the same time, sometimes you just go up against a team, and it doesn't matter who you are, how good you are. They're just on a roll, and that's the feel I got last night.
Well, you're right. Everything you just said is spot on. And Canadiens fans might not like what you had to say. Too bad. It's a reality check. They can't afford to start the same way against Philadelphia as they did last night. Yeah. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat. I said on our good friend Tony Marinaro show last night, physicality, St. Louis dominated. The hit chart shows, I think, 23-23. Throw that away. The St. Louis hits were devastating body shots. It took Montreal right out of the game. They targeted Mike Matheson. They targeted Alex Carrier because those are matchup players on defense. Mm-hmm. They did a number on those guys big time. Montreal didn't start on time. I don't care what the fans say. Oh, it was 2-1 that the goal with 5 seconds to go by Holloway is what separated the two teams. I'm not buying that at all. I watched the game.
Yeah,
Montreal was not good enough. And Jimmy, this is for our friends in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't watched St. Louis play, watch St. Louis play. You'll see the aggressiveness that Jimmy wants his team to play with, and you'll see the neutral zone that Claude Julien wants the team to play with. So you got the combination of two former Boston coaches who did really good things in St. Louis now, and they've affected the way the team plays. And I don't, you know what? I know nobody, most of these quote-unquote insiders, they didn't even know Claude Julien's coaching there.
I know. It's true. A lot of people forget that, and I don't know why, but they do. But one person that definitely knows who the coaches are there and knows pretty much everything about the St. Louis Blues, he's tied in big time there in St. Louis, is our good friend Andy Strickland, joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Hey, Andy, how you doing? We don't got your sound.
Hang on. There we go. We go.
Gotcha.
What's going on? Everything good?
Everything's great. How about you?
No complaints whatsoever. All is well. Listen, it's great to see we're hitting the stretch run. The playoffs are around the corner, and it's good to see the Blues getting some recognition because they have been on fire as of late. I'm glad you brought up Claude Julien. He's a underrated, funny guy. This guy's got a great personality and certainly a lot of experience, and everything's kind of coming together at the right time for the Blues.
It's cool. You're not only watching a really good hockey team, you're going to get to see the Frozen Four in St. Louis this year. Starts tomorrow, which a lot of people know, but you're going to get to see that, and I think you're going to have a magnificent Frozen Four in St. Louis this year.
Hey, Pierre, you know who they're hoping for here in St. Louis is Jimmy Snuggerud, man. They want Minnesota to get here.
It's an easy trip. One locker room to the next. It's pretty easy.
Just sign right afterwards. Although, who knows how that's going to play out because, we don't know how meaningful the games are going to be for the Blues down the stretch. Who's going to come out of the lineup if they put him in? But one thing's for sure. He's going to sign. He's not going to Springfield. He's going to come to St. Louis and, be patient and wait his turn. I think he's going to understand the situation. And this is where agents come into play. If you grow up in a hockey family, listen, he understands the situation that the Blues are in. So I don't think his expectations are going to be, okay, put me on the power play and let me just take one-timers in day one. He understands what's at stake. Just like Dalibor Dvorsky, man, they had a reason to get him in there a couple games ago with Buchnevich dealing with a little bit of something right now. So he got in there for one game, but he didn't play last night against Montreal.
That's really well said, Jimmy. What Andy just said is spot on, and I agree on the Snuggerud factor. I think that's right on the mark, right on it.
I remember you telling me about him a way back, Pierre, to watch him.
He can shoot the puck. I'm not saying he's Brett Hull. Don't get me wrong, but there's a whole lot of velocity on that shot, man. He can shoot it.
Hey, he may not be Brett Hull, but I'm watching, a guy like Patrick Laine last night. He just stands there and takes one-timers. I don't know if that's going to be Snuggerud's game where he's just going to be, waiting for the seam pass to come across so he can just take one-timers the whole game. I think he can play. He's a good passer, too. You watch him play. This guy can make plays off the pass, too. But I'm excited to see him get in here. I know there was a lot of people who were a little bit disappointed that he didn't sign after last season. But I give the Blues credit because they supported his decision. I think they were a little disappointed, too. They wanted to get him here. They were hoping that he'd be here in a Blues uniform this year. But Ben Hankinson, his agent, has a relationship with a number of people in the Blues organization, including Alexander Steen, who's going to be the next GM. He represented Steiner. He represents Braden Shen right now, the captain, too. So they got a good relationship, and it looks like that'll get buttoned up soon. How deep and how far will they go, Pierre? You see this team getting to the Frozen Four?
Yeah, well, here's the one thing with Minnesota. They got to play against one of the best coached teams in college hockey tomorrow. Or is that Friday? I forget. No, they're tomorrow. They're
tomorrow night. You're right.
They're tomorrow, UMass. So that's my biggest concern for them. They got to play against this UMass team. Jimmy knows. I did a lot of their games on TV this year. I watched them a lot. They're amazingly well coached. Yeah. So that's my only concern. If Carville comes up with a plan to shut down Snuggerud, that could be a problem for Minnesota, but I expect that they can get there. I do. I expect they can get there.
Okay, good.
I'm a little partisan there, so I won't comment. I'm a UMass alum. But anyhow, hey, Andy, take us back to when Monty got hired. And he's starting to make his print on the team there. Is there a turning point you can look back on where the team really started to buy into what he was preaching?
Well, right off the bat, they had a lot of success. I mean, his first game was in Madison Square Garden. They won that game. Right. They won their first two games. He had a conversation with Zachary Bolduc, a former first-round pick, who had 0 goals at the time when Jim Montgomery took over. And he said to him, hey, listen, I want you to shoot the puck. Every chance you get an opportunity, you shoot the puck and you play with confidence. And now Bolduc last night, he scores his 15th goal of the season. You got veteran players like Robert Thomas. I had him on our post-game show. I mean, just raving about his evolution as a player in turn, and also coming across to making the point that he isn't even close to becoming a polished product. This guy's got a lot of room to grow. But I think having the Four Nations break for Jim Montgomery, I think gave him an opportunity to sit back and truly evaluate what he has, who he wants to play with who, what their deficiencies might be, what adjustments need to be made. He didn't have that opportunity. It was a whirlwind, man. I mean, you get fired one day by the Boston Bruins, and then you get hired a few days later by the St. Louis Blues. And I think that break gave him a chance to not only evaluate the team, but also almost have like a mini training camp, where you had a couple of days of practice. I mean, he put them through some pretty, hard skates there, and get everybody from the coaching staff on down in the right mindset, in the right frame of mind to really attack this and go on a run. And that's exactly what they've done. Obviously, Jordan Binnington going to the Four Nations, he's come back with a lot of confidence. They're defending at such a high level right now. I mean, look at their shots against. I think they're second best in the league at shots against, just over 24 shots per game against since the Four Nations. Their penalty kill has drastically improved. Their power play has gotten much better. Their best players are certainly playing at a high level, but they have a fourth line. I mean, you look at their four lines right now, they play to their identity.
That Nathan Walker's a pain in the butt, man.
Oh, with him and Toropchenko and Radek Faksa. The injury to Colton Parayko right before the trade deadline, you would never call that a blessing in disguise, but I think that led to Doug Armstrong kind of standing pat, not moving guys like Nick Leddy. And you look at the Blues experience they have on the back end, they've got a bunch of guys who have played 1,000 games. Yeah. Ryan Suter's played over 1,500. He's now got the second most games in the history of the NHL for an American-born player, past Matt Cullen last night.
Cam Fowler.
Cam Fowler comes over. That was their trade deadline move. They got him on board in December. Yeah, so, you look at the fourth line, you look at the third line, everybody's playing to their identity. I'm not going to say this is the 2019 season all over again, but there's a lot of similarities because they changed coaches. Binnington obviously has gotten hot. They had a great fourth line in 2019 with Barbashev and Sundqvist and Steen. That team underachieved, which led to the coaching change. This was more of a circumstance where Jim Montgomery became available and Doug Armstrong jumped on it. And you can maybe make the case that they're overachieving a little bit, but they're riding the hot wave. There's no doubt.
One thing I know about you is you're really good with intel. So I want you to feed me this intel. How the heck did the St. Louis Blues know that the Edmonton Oilers would not be able to or would not match on Holloway and Broberg?
Well, I got to give Darren Ferris a lot of credit for that. I mean, he's
the agent.
Yep. He's the agent that represents Philip Broberg. And, listen, he did his job and obviously looked around the league and said, okay, who's got the cap space? Who needs a left shot defenseman? Where would it be a good fit? He initiated the conversation with Doug Armstrong. But Darren Ferris was also mentoring the agent for Dylan Holloway, who's out of Calgary. I think Holloway's his only client that he has. So they had already had a relationship. And he told Doug Armstrong, I think we can get Dylan Holloway involved in this as well. And Doug Armstrong was on board right away and started to go to work on that. I know Ryan Miller, the assistant GM for the Blues, was involved as well, made a great presentation to the staff, Doug Armstrong and his staff, in terms of, what this could look like, how they would fit it in. But they got both these guys for a second-round pick and a third-round pick. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, you look at Holloway, he's got 60 points now. Yeah. And I was talking to Kevin Lowe the other day, and he said, as crazy as it may sound, it doesn't even hurt Edmonton as much today as people think it does, but it's really going to hurt 2, 3, 4 years down the road from now when they don't have him. And these guys are established players. I mean, Broberg, 4 points last night. He got hurt earlier in the year, Pierre and Jimmy, and that kind of set him back. This guy was red hot. I think he had points in his first 5 or 6 games of the year. And now he's playing with a ton of confidence and certainly getting a lot of help playing with experienced guys. He and Justin Falk. Falk's played his best hockey of the season since the Four Nations as well.
I thought Falk was really good last night against Montreal. He was really good last night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How about Jordan Kyrou, Andy? I mean, I had heard, and I thought it was crazy when I heard it, but there was some rumors floating around online there that, they might trade him. It seemed like everybody on St. Louis was maybe going to be traded. But, I mean, this guy is something else. And I was looking at his stats coming into the game last night, and what he has a history of torching the Canadians. He's been unreal. He
really has been. And those rumors were real. You know what I mean?
Real, wow.
this guy was and I don't know as much about this year, but certainly in years past, he was combined minus 50 the last 2 seasons.
Okay.
I give this guy a ton of credit. He's plus 19 now. And his numbers are a little bit down. He still has 30 goals for the 33rd consecutive season. Yep. He's at 31 goals right now, which matches his total from last year. But he's at, 61 points, something like that. He had 75 and 73 a few years ago in back-to-back seasons. But he's really made a concerted effort to cut down on the turnovers, understand time and score, understand puck management, when to change, when not to change, putting pucks in good situations. If you don't have a play, it's okay just to get it in deep. And he's not making those critical errors at the bad time of games where it really stands out, and you get a lot of criticism that comes with that. We always knew he could score. Everyone knew he's got the great explosiveness in terms of his ability to skate and the puck skills and the shooting ability. But to see it all come together and realize how hard he's worked at it is where you really appreciate it. He and Dylan Holloway have become really close friends off the ice. I mean, they were in the weight room a lot together, working out off the ice. On the ice, after every practice, you started to notice those two guys staying on the ice and doing extra work when everybody else was leaving. And that's the impact of having a guy like Ryan O'Reilly here over the years, when you talk about the culture that gets passed down from one guy to the next. They work on a lot of stuff together. And it was Steve Ott who went to Jim Montgomery and said, hey, listen, these guys have become good friends. Like, let's play them together. And since they have been put together, they've just taken off. They've got amazing chemistry. They play with a veteran center and Braden Shen, who's been really, really good with those two. He looks quicker playing with two guys who can really skate. I mean, Holloway may be faster than Kyrou. I mean, it'd be an interesting race. I think if they were to start at the goal line, Kyrou would get to the first blue line first, but Holloway may get to the far blue line first. You know what I mean? It's amazing to see those two guys operate with one another. But I think Holloway, just the way he plays, the chemistry that those two guys have developed in a very short time, has certainly had a big impact on Jordan Kyrou too.
Andy, how come more people in the league don't know who Robert Thomas is?
They don't do their homework. Listen, I say this all the time, Pierre. It's like you just wonder, do people really truly pay attention to players across the board around the league? And that's where you see teams make mistakes in trades and signing players in free agency. That's why I'm a big advocate of, extending your own players. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, and everyone's saying right now, are we going to see more offer sheets and whatnot? Like, you might, but I mean, this was the perfect storm. I mean, the Blues needed a defenseman. Holloway is fit in perfectly. I think he's more than a point per game guy now since Jim Montgomery has taken over. So it's the Monty effect too. I think he's got 51 points in 50 games, something like that, since Monty's taken over. So, these two guys have just been perfect fits, but it's not like whoever you go out and sign to an offer sheet is automatically going to be a great fit with your particular team. It may not work. You know what I mean? So, but Robert Thomas, all this guy has done pretty much his entire career is win. I mean, you go back to when he was playing minor hockey, you look at his, time in the OHL, winning Memorial Cups. And obviously, winning a Stanley Cup his rookie season. This guy's a winner. 4 points last night. He's not playing with Kyrou. Everyone talks about Kyrou and Thomas, but they've been separated a little bit. He's got great chemistry with Buchnevich, who's been out of the lineup.
Neighbors is pretty good too, Andy. Neighbors is pretty good too.
Is he ever? And that's why it's not just about goal scoring too with Jake Neighbors. He had 27 last year, and his shooting percentage was through the roof. He had 8 power play goals last season. But you don't need him to score 27. I think he's capable of it. I mean, maybe he careered it last season, but he's going to be around 20. He's going to give you that net front on the power play and give you that physicality. He's a throwback player. Obviously, he and Braden Shen has been well documented. They're very close. He lived with Shen his first season in the league as well. So, listen, they've got a lot of depth, more depth than I think people realize. A lot of young players, and there's guys that aren't even here yet. We talked about Snuggerud and Otto Stenberg and Lindstein and all these. Jakob Stanso was a star in the World Juniors for Czechia.
And he, you know what, Jimmy, Andy just talked about it. Dvorsky's a hell of a player. Like, I don't think people understand how good this guy is. Like, it's hard to play in the American Hockey League as a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, it's really hard. This kid's really
score
good.
20 and score 20.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've been watching him a long time. Like, Andy, I'm going to tell you this right now. I think the Blues are going to make the playoffs, and I would not want to play them in the first round because I think they are. I'm not saying they're going to the final, but they remind me a lot of the Florida Panthers 2 years ago when they beat the Boston Bruins 8-1. I wouldn't want to play these guys, Andy. They're a whole lot of nasty.
Yeah, the conversation we're having now is would you rather play Winnipeg or Vegas?
Winnipeg.
If you're St. Louis.
Winnipeg.
You
know why?
Yeah.
The Hellebuck effect.
Well,
Can he win the big one? And he has, to this point, I mean, Bennington already beat him head-to-head.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I agree with you. I said the same thing. I think maybe I don't know if he's in Hellebuck's head or not, but he beat him head-to-head in 2019. He beat him in the Four Nations Championship game. Vegas has a championship pedigree.
Yeah.
They've got proven players in the playoffs. I would and listen, Winnipeg's going to hear the noise going into the playoffs. Can they get it done? Can Hellebuck get it done? So I think you're right, in terms of that. Although Petrangelo's a little banged up right now, so he probably won't be 100%. But if you're St. Louis, you can't worry about that, right? You just got to keep winning. But there's a good chance they catch Minnesota before it's all said and done, and maybe they end up playing Vegas. Who knows?
Hey, Jimmy, before you go, I want to like people are seeing how good Andy is at his job.
Yeah,
Andy, I got to ask you. Like, I haven't talked about this. I've talked to you a lot since then. Can you take us through what happened with Alex Pietrangelo in St. Louis? Like, don't make it convoluted. Just what happened?
Sure. I think a little bit of ego got in the way, to be honest with you. I know it's funny. I was talking to Mark Bergevin about that today because, Doug Armstrong has admitted publicly on my podcast I do with Cam Jansen. He said, like, hey, if there's one thing he'd like to have a do-over, maybe it's with the Alex Pietrangelo negotiations. Mm-hmm. But I think it became personal a little bit. They didn't get it done. They traded for Justin Falk, obviously. They brought him in here. He got the contract extension right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Maybe that ruffled feathers a little bit, from that point going forward. They tried to have some conversations. I don't think the communication was great. I don't want to point fingers at one side or the next. I know the Blues wanted to get it done. A lot of it came down to some internal philosophy that the Blues have in regards to signing bonus money, no move clauses. Doug Armstrong's not a big fan of that, although he did throw in a no move clause, I think, in the final 2 years of the deal. And I don't disagree with him in terms of that. I mean, if you're a player like Petro, you're probably not going to get put on waivers. You're not going to be sent down to the minors, but the signing bonus money I can understand is, why that would be important to some players. But at the end of the day, you're going to get your money regardless. I guess if there's a lockout, you wouldn't get paid, but still, we all know that you're gonna get your money. So listen, I just think some personalities clashed, But I would say this, and it's been a good fit, obviously, for Petro. He's gone there. He won a second cup, but he still has a house here. His wife is from here. He lives here this summer. I really believe if they had to do it over again today, both sides would want to get it done, and they would get it done. It's unfortunate that it didn't happen because he could have ended up having a statue outside the Enterprise Center, to be honest with you.
Precisely why I'm asking. He was so popular. And Jimmy, just background intel, and I know Andy's aware of this, is for people out there. Doug Armstrong's real good friends with Donnie Mean and the people at Newport Sports. Like, they're not just a little bit friendly. They're real friendly. And so when he says there was a communication breakdown, I was like, whoa, how did that happen? Those guys are tight. Like, I know how tight they are.
Yeah. It's tough.
Hey, listen, we see, certain players on paper or, just the optics. Like you suggest, hey, they should spend their entire career with that specific team, especially after the Blues winning their first ever Stanley Cup and Alex Pietrangelo being the captain of the team. Yeah, he could have, broken a lot of records here in terms of games played by a Blues player and a lot of different things. I think he could have had his jersey hanging up. Maybe he still will. I don't know. Chris Pronger left and he's still got his jersey retired. So it's always possible. But I would imagine the two sides, when it's all said and done, you'll see it one day down the road. They'll come back together. They'll turn the page and move forward, especially with his connection to the city with, his wife being from here. And I would imagine we'll see a lot of Alex Pietrangelo when his career is all said and done.
Nice.
Andy, another guy that's been there for a bit now, and I know is a fan favorite, is the captain, Braden Shen. There was a lot of noise around him heading into the deadline. What happened to keep him there, and how happy do you think they are now that he is still there?
He didn't want to go anywhere. He wanted to stay, and he had a no-trade clause, and he exercised it. I don't think Doug Armstrong really pushed him on the issue. He didn't want to go to Toronto and some of these other teams that you've heard that maybe he was connected to. So, sometimes the best moves are the moves you don't make, you know, and this guy is such a good leader. Ryan Suter, who I thought had a real bad reputation before he got here. This is one of my favorite players that I've ever covered. I love talking youth hockey with him. He's a great, great guy. I think sometimes you just got to get to know people. Maybe he's matured and changed over the years. He's 40 years old. He's played over 1,500 games. He's just kind of playing with house money at this stage. I'd love to see him win. But for him to tell me publicly in an interview that I did on the Blues platform on their YouTube, we do something called the late shift after games where we do these long form interviews. And he was my guest. And he called Braden Shen one of the greatest people he's ever met in his career as an NHL player, one of the nicest people and one of the best leaders he's ever been around. And it just really resonated with me that he said that. Because if you know Ryan Suter, he's not going to say it unless he means it.
Right.
And
you think about all the guys he played with too.
Then, a guy like Tyler Tucker, who just signed an extension with the Blues, a young player. I said, hey, who's one of the guys that's taking you under their wing when you first came into the organization? And he says, it's Braden Shen. He'd had me over for dinner. He'd take me and Jake out. Jake Neighbors, who I mentioned, lived with him. I think this guy is one of the most underrated leaders in the game today. He is so respected in this market and with this organization. By the player and the man management too. Alexander Steen obviously was his teammate. They won a cup together.
The whole family's special. I've known Luke since he's been playing for the Kelowna Rockets. I remember Braden when he was 14 years old, going up to Saskatoon and meeting the family. And they're special people. You nailed that one. You're like 100%. You couldn't be more right about that.
I love that scene too. His father when they on his 1000th game when he read the lineup and everything. That was great.
I know, and Doug Armstrong was at the GM meeting. See, they wanted to wait and have the silver stick be presented until he could have all his friends and family kind of come into town and they could have a party after the game and stuff. And so they moved it to a date when the owner was out of town and Doug Armstrong was at the GM meeting. So Jeff Shen, his dad, who we've gotten to know real well here in St. Louis, came on the ice to present him the silver stick, which I thought was really cool. I mean, you don't typically see that. And for Luke and Braden, two brothers, for the first time in NHL history to get to 1,000 games in the same season.
I know, eh?
I mean, that's incredible. Could you imagine having two sons, both get drafted 5th overall, both play 1,000 games in the NHL, both win Stanley Cups, both represent their countries in various international tournaments, man? They are an unreal family. Great people.
I spent a lot of time up there in the prairie in Saskatchewan, and I used to see them in the summer, and I was like, oh, man, these guys are too much. They're good guys. They're really good guys.
Oh, yeah.
Final question for you, Andy. Coming into the season, this was viewed as a retool, so to speak, for the Blues. They make the playoffs. Let's say they go in, they win a round, and they don't, whatever. But is this still considered a retool, or is that accelerated now? How does this change anything what they're doing right now?
Well, if you talk to Doug Armstrong privately before the season, he would tell you, I think we're good enough to make the playoffs. Okay. Now, I mean, based on where they're at right now, if they don't make the playoffs, that would mean there's a drastic collapse taking place. That would not be good, with 9 games to go in the season. So they put themselves in this position, but it's not a fluke. I mean, they've got really good players up and down their lineup. I mean, look at their defense. Parayko, who I remember reporting a couple days before the rosters were announced for the 4 nations, and the most popular insiders were reaching out to me being like, are you sure about that? I'm not hearing his name. I'm like, I hear he's going to make the team. Like, he's going to be on the team for Team Canada. And he made the team, and then now has become a household name, and everyone recognizes him as one of the best defensemen in the world, which he is in terms of his ability to defend and to skate and uses his reach. And he's having a career season offensively. He's got 15 goals. I know he's hurt right now, but he's going to be back before the playoffs. But then you look at, Suter, who I don't know where they'd be without him because they had some injuries to Broberg early in the year. Letty was out for a long period of time, but now you get him back, who's played over 1,000 games. These guys are better with Parayko out of the lineup in reality, because they're used to having significant and big roles on every team they've ever played on. And now their roles expanded without Parayko. So it's interesting to see kind of everyone play at a high level. But so if you look at their roster and you look at the way they played over the last several weeks, you can call it a retool or whatever you want. I mean, going into next year, they are going to be considered a contender to win the division, I think. You know what I mean? They should certainly be, in the top 3 next season. Anything less than that would be a little bit of a surprise based on the way that they played right now. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it finishes and just what they're able to do come playoff time, because they're going to be a hard out in a 7-game series.
Could you imagine if Winnipeg plays St. Louis, you got Luke Shen versus Braden Shen? I can't wait.
I talked to Jeff Shen about that the other day.
Yeah. Wow, that would be something.
I asked Jeff Shen, and this, Pierre and Jimmy, listen, they got 2 goalies too. And this Joel Hofer, you look at his path to the NHL.
I watched him go on that run in 2022 to the Calder Cup with Springfield. I remember.
Oh,
I like this kid. He's got something.
As a young kid. You know who his partner was at the time was Charlie Lindgren.
That's right.
He was playing ahead of Charlie Lindgren in Springfield for a little bit. He came up here and had some moments in St. Louis, and now he's gone on to create a nice NHL career for himself.
Yep,
so
sure.
Everything goes full circle, as you guys know.
It does, my friend. Well, listen, Andy, we appreciate you taking the time. Tell the listeners and viewers out there where they can find all your work. I know it's a little bit everywhere, so.
Well, Cam and Strick Podcast, you can find us there. Pierre's been on there before. We had a great conversation with him. I think we did it during COVID. We got to get you back on now so we can see your face, and we got to make that happen. I do another podcast called Hockey Sense. It's a radio show that I've had here in town for over 20 years. I'm the Sideline Reporter on FanDuel Sports Midwest for the St. Louis Blues. My 15th season doing that. So we try to stay busy. I got a young kid playing hockey now. I've been coaching with our AAA Blues organization for over 20 years in St. Louis. So we stay busy, man. I love the game. Awesome. and hope we see some playoff hockey here in St. Louis. That'll be fun.
You will.
Sounds good, man.
This year.
Hey, you give Monty our best and Claude too. All right.
We will for sure.
Andy, thank you.
Andy Strickland joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. He's tied in there in St. Louis, Pierre. I'll tell you that.
No, he gets it. And look, I've talked to him a long time. I've probably known him 20, 25 years. He's plugged in, and they trust him. Doug Armstrong trusts him. Al McInnes trusts him. I think Monty obviously trusts him. The players there know he cares about them. I think St. Louis is going to be one of the most difficult first-round matchups for anybody. They obviously have to make it. They still haven't made it. And I would just say when the start of the year happened and Drew Bannister was coaching there, and I don't think this is a reflection on him. I didn't think the lineup was good enough. I didn't think it was. And I might have got that wrong. I'm not sure yet, but I might have got it wrong. Yep. But I can tell you one thing. Monty and Claude and Steve Ott, they've pushed that thing way past where I thought it would be. Yeah. For this year.
And I really like what you said earlier, and you had told me it off air this morning too, just how they're letting the personalities and the coaching philosophies of all their staff blend in. It's not just the head coach. It's not just everyone, but he's filtering in everybody's attributes there, which, I think is genius. That's the way to do it.
Well, that's how you do it. If you look at the best coach in the history of the game is Scotty Bowman. And when you worked on his staff, you knew you had a responsibility, and he would empower you to do your job. And if you didn't do it, then you're going to hear about it. But if you did it, you were okay.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Well, great interview there. Thanks to Andy for joining us here on the Eye Test. Let us tell you about our wonderful sponsors right now. TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. I was in touch with Michael, our friend from TCS here. He said to say hello to you.
Nice.
And he's thinking of us and watching all the time. So hello to Michael out there, wherever he may be. And of course, our other sponsor, our good gambling sponsors here, Betway. You can still make that first bet and lose and be rewarded up to $200 credit if you are a new customer. So if you're not a customer yet at Betway, go right there to that QR code in front of you. If you're watching, sign up via that. or go to the website if you're listening, click on the details section, create a new account. The offer is only available for new customers. It is not available in Ontario right now. Terms and conditions apply. And as always, you must be 18 plus or over to bet. All right, let's go to the sick picks of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, it's another big one for the Islanders and the Canucks as they'll square off against each other. Islanders obviously coming off that highly controversial, goalie interference, Pierre. It's funny, I'm seeing a lot of people, Pierre, and I'm not changing my stance on it, and I know you're not, but I'm seeing some people sway back the other way now and say that it was a good call. I don't know
why.
I don't know if the league got to. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because the tap is going to get shut off if they don't.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking. So just interesting there that a lot of people kind of swayed all of a sudden and pulled a 180. But anyhow, I stick with my stance on that. I didn't agree with the call. All right, Canucks and Islanders there. Important game, obviously, for both teams. And that's why I like this one to go to a draw. Another overtime. It is the draw season here in the NHL. And, hey, what's better than more hockey? So bet that overtime right now at plus 320 value. That's great value for this Islanders-Canucks game to go to overtime. Then I'm looking for New Jersey Devils, who are out in Chicago taking on the Blackhawks. Tough loss for them the other night. They need a bounce back. They need to get on a roll. If they really want to gain some momentum going into the playoffs and do something, they need to find some consistency here, Pierre. I think they started tonight. I like them on the puck line at -1.5. You can get plus 120 value for that if you take them to win by 2 goals. And then I'm going to go out west to the depleted Boston Bruins and the Anaheim Ducks, who, they may not be winning a lot right now, Pierre, but if you look at, I'd say their last 10 losses, I think about 8 of them were 1-goal games. They're in games a lot. They're hustling. They're buying into Greg Cronin's system, and they're trying to establish position for themselves in the lineup for next year. They're a dangerous team right now. That's why I like the Ducks to win, who actually are a rare favorite right now at -110. And I also like the under 6.5 at the same value, -110. Pierre, by the way, 2 things. Nikita Zadorov walked back his comments.
Zadorov.
You're going to have to get like a, what do they call it? A cattle prodder?
Cattle prod.
Yes. Zadorov walked back his comments on Swayman yesterday. I just want to know what you thought about that.
Would you think that what he said was inappropriate?
Yep.
So I'm sure Donnie Sweeney or somebody internally said, backtrack, let's go.
Yep. And then, of course, today, news just broke right after their game day skate that he is on his way home for family reasons. We hope everything is all right. And he will not be in the lineup tonight for the Boston Bruins. Just a note there. All right, let's get to the Q&A. Alex Evanowski, do you think offer sheets are going to become more common in the offseason? Lack of great free agents being available and the success of what St. Louis did this offseason might make it happen. Alex, I think you're one of many, many, many people wondering that right now, and I don't blame you. I just don't know, given every team's situation right now. I think it'll be very situational.
I think it's very situational. I agree 100% with Jimmy, and Edmonton authored their own demise on that one. We said it the day it happened. So, yeah, no, you can't judge the free agency market, especially the RFA market, based on what happened with Edmonton and St. Louis. Because if that happens again and you're an owner of an NHL team, that's a case study of what not to do, what Edmonton did, and you better make sure you don't do that again.
Great point. That's the thing I think a lot of people are forgetting right now, and I thought Andy described it well too. It was a perfect storm. Yeah. But, remember, that's great that St. Louis was able to pull that off. But as you say, Pierre, everyone else around the league is saying to themselves, I can't let that happen to me or I'm in trouble.
Jimmy, the day you go pull a tape up, the day that they brought in those 2 players, Arvidsson and Skinner, I said they are getting redundant and they're going to be in trouble for this.
Yep.
The Predators were at the door.
Yep. And it happened. So there we go. Next question. Ethan Russell, did the Bruins re-sign Yoki Haru? Feels like he's a great third pairing defenseman and hasn't had the best opportunity in Buffalo. Ethan, I've been pretty satisfied with him since he came over from Buffalo. I don't know what his asking price will be. If it's reasonable, I would do it.
Yeah, probably, because they're going to need bodies in the back.
Yeah, what do you got coming?
Yeah, they're going to need bodies.
So, all right, next question. Ian Lewis, Habs lost non-division rival. Division rivals also lost equals didn't lose ground. 1 goal loss would have taken a larger physical and emotional toll. They just had a night off. It's a clear reminder there's no easy wins. That's the best kind of loss. Do you agree? I mean, loss is a loss. I don't think
No, I like the fact they lost in the non-division game. I would not have played Montembeault in that game. I said that to our friend Tony last night, and I'll say it again. He did not look plugged in last night. He looked fatigued against Colorado on Saturday night. I would not have played him last night. I would have played Dobish last night. I'm not saying that's what led to the defeat, but I would have given him a substantial rest because you don't play again until Thursday. He would have had from Sunday morning till Thursday night.
Yep.
A substantial rest.
And let him go on a little.
Yeah. Then let him go play. Maybe he plays back-to-back between Philly and Carolina, 2, obviously conference games, and then you go to Florida for a division game and you try to knock that out of the park on Sunday afternoon. So that's the only thing I'll quibble with is I didn't like the management of the goaltender going into that game last night.
Speaking of Florida, too, by the way, Paul Maurice saying today, Pierre, I don't know if you saw it, they're looking at Friday night as the debut as a Florida Panther for former Bruins captain Brad Marchand. So we'll see if he plays there. And also what I noted, I was looking at their schedule, Pierre, and this is huge. You don't see this happen this late in the season. They've been off since Sunday, and they don't have a game until that game Friday. That's a nice little break to have at this time of year. So watch out for them, especially the Canadians got them on Sunday. They're going to be well rested.
That can go either way, though.
Good point.
You can get fat, drunk, and stupid with all that time off, too.
Especially in the sunshine. Yeah. All right, next question. Renaissance Resistor, with the loss of the Blues last night, do the Habs need more youthful enthusiasm? Wouldn't Florian be a huge improvement energy-wise over Waugh, who's been lackluster in my opinion?
I don't know I don't think Florian's a second-line player. Somebody brought it up last night on Tony's show. I thought it was actually a really good point by the listener. If you want to take Waugh out, put Heineman up there. He can skate and he can shoot the puck. And then maybe you can put Florian Jack-Guy in on the 4th line with Evans and Armia. Mm-hmm. That line's lost a little luster. And Jimmy, I said it to you a while ago. Jake Evans, after he got his contract, started being a cutie pie.
Mm-hmm.
Started being a cutie pie with the puck and lost a little bit of his identity. Now, that's normal. Mm-hmm. That happens with guys that get that extension. They're going to have to get him back on track. He hadn't been the same player. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's a good player. Doesn't mean he's a bad kid. He's a good kid. They got to get him back into his identity. That's what they need.
I'd agree. All right, next question. Joseph Cohen. Why did Dallas go 5 years instead of 8 with Wyatt Johnston?
I don't think Dallas did. I think the agent did.
Mm-hmm.
And Dallas just wants to say 5 years in the NHL is a lifetime anyways. Yeah. So it's a great – by the way, that's a very good question. Sometimes the agent will say, okay, you don't want to give us X amount of money. That's why I always say to you, Jimmy, in these contracts, term or dollars.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't get either, so you just meet in the middle and say, okay, we'll give you X dollars, but the agent's going to say, yeah, but we're only going to sign for 5 years because that's what it's worth. So you shouldn't quibble. Like, it's fine. It's okay. Okay. The one thing about Wyatt Johnston is if you want to move out of Dallas, you better make sure you go to a no-tax state. That's all I'm going to tell you right now. These guys are living the life of Riley. I know people like talk about it a little bit. If you're in Florida, if you're in Tennessee, if you're in Dallas, Texas, if you're in Nevada, if you're in Seattle, you are laughing compared to what some of these. Go look at the pay. Go look at a pay stub from a guy that plays in California and a guy that plays in Texas. And let's just say they have the same contract. You will be blown away by the difference.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, next question. Randy Workman, question. Jimmy, is there a player you think could get an offer sheet? My answer is Gabriel Velarde. I mean, if he's there to put the offer sheet down, I would do that in a second, Randy. But something tells me I think the Jets will have him locked up before that even gets close.
Yeah, Randy's raising a good point there.
But yeah,
Randy's raising a good point, and I'm going to give you credit on this one too. You said to me, things could change significantly. As I said that, I thought about it.
Yep.
In Manitoba, you said it. I listen to everything you say. I don't always agree with everything you say, but I listen. And you said that, and I thought it was a good point. No, I did. Look, they got to get some stuff going there in Winnipeg. First round loss this year would not be good.
No.
And then that opens up the potential for an offer sheet on a player
you know
like
what?
that.
Here's right too. Like, and I did say it. I didn't think about that when I replied there. Yeah, the financial stuff, not necessarily cap, but money straight. You know, like that's a good point. They're going to be in an interesting situation this offseason.
I will say that everybody says which team has the most pressure on them in the first round of the playoffs. It's easy for me to even answer that this year. The Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah,
the Winnipeg Jets do.
Yeah. Especially now, like you say, and then if they get paired up against St. Louis. All right, next question.
I'm just telling you, Jimmy, I don't want anything to do with St. Louis. Yeah. I say that out of respect.
Yep.
I don't want anything to do with them. I might even text Monty and tell him that.
All right, next question. Filterless Bear, part 1. Is little man syndrome good for players having a chip on their shoulder, but maybe negative for a coach? Not trying to insult Marty St. Louis, but he seems unwilling to adjust. Perfect example was last night. Part 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it pride preventing St. Louis from asking for more coaching help, especially defensively? He proved so many wrong through his career as a player. Is that clouding his judgment now? Filterless Bear, Pierre, I'll let you go in a second. Just quickly, I think that can happen sometimes. I don't necessarily think that's the case right now with Marty.
Yeah, I don't think the size of a guy really matters in coaching in the NHL. You know, I really don't. I coached against big guys and I coached against small. Yeah. So all I'll say is I didn't like what they did with the goalie last night. That's my one takeaway from that. And I didn't like the response when the physicality got to a different level. Like when I saw Bolduc wiped out Michael Matheson in the third period in the offensive. I'll tell you what, right now, like that can't happen anymore. And the boys better. It's not so much the coach message, it's the boys in the room or on the bus or on the plane. That doesn't happen anymore, fellas. When I saw Carrier get wiped out by Holloway, I was like, that can't happen anymore, boys. When I saw, I'm trying to remember the St. Louis player. Darn it. It might have been Tessier. I don't know. Somebody got Lane. It was behind the play, but I caught it. Somebody got Lane Hudson pretty good, and Arbor stepped in, but Arbor didn't do much. Like you could tell, the linesmen were aware. That can't happen anymore, Jimmy. I'm telling you. You go into Philly, you know they're going to be ticked off from what happened to them. They got embarrassed in Toronto last night, Jimmy.
Especially after what Tortorella said too.
Jimmy, they were really bad.
Yeah.
They were really they weren't a little bit bad in Toronto last night. They were really bad.
Yep. And for those that didn't see, I highly urge to check out Tortorella's quotes after the game. They were ominous, to say the least. And basically, Filterless Bear, and I got what you're saying there, Filterless Bear. I agree with you on that. Sometimes, and I kind of felt like this was the case with Tim Thomas after he won the cup. You know, Tim Thomas always had to prove people wrong, Pierre, and he always had that chip on his shoulder. Yeah. And then once he won the cup, it was like he almost struggled because he didn't have that anymore. He didn't have to prove people wrong anymore. And I think that can happen sometimes where a player gets lost. Like, wait a minute, what do I use as motivation? And sometimes they lose that. That I could see that. I don't know if that's happening with Marty, but I've seen it happen with players.
No, but I think that's a good point. You know, and they're both UVM guys.
Teammates, right?
Here you
go. All right, next question. Alex Evanowski, I feel like the Lightning have gotten way faster than what they were, say, 1 to 3 years ago with the additions and subtractions they made this offseason. They looked refreshed and dangerous. Agree? Hey, Alex, that's a team everybody keeps saying, oh, they're going to die off this year. It's finally time. I'm with you. They keep finding ways, and they're still there. So credit to them.
I think that's a great point by Alex. The other thing, too, is they lost in 5 games last year in the first round to Florida. Mm-hmm. You can't imagine what that does to your batteries.
Oh, yeah.
For the next season. It builds your battery system up pretty good.
And people don't, I know people around the league maybe don't understand, but that is a rivalry now. Those teams do not like each other. So
how can people around the league not understand that? Are you kidding me?
It's like Andy said it when he was on.
You put the name out there. If you're going to say that, you put the name out there.
I don't have names. I've just seen people say, really? It's a real rivalry? And
oh my gosh. People, you know what? Don't want, please.
Yeah.
That's silly.
But that's like Andy said. Sometimes people get tunnel vision. They're only watching their own team. They don't understand what else is going on around the league. And I urge them to watch them. If that ends up as a series in the first round, watch it. It's going to be a war. All right, next question. Randy Workman, can the Jets get to the final?
Why not? I don't know why they can't, but they haven't yet.
Yep. They're going to have to prove a lot of people wrong. I'm not going to say they can't, but I don't think they will. That's just my opinion, though.
I'm with you, Jimmy, but they have enough. They've proven it. I think Arneal. So I know he's not going to be probably in the coach of the year discussion. Scotty Arneal's done a very good job with that team. He's done a very good job with that team. He really has.
All right, next question. Franco, with Florida Panthers needing to re-sign Sam Bennett, is it possible Anton Lundell becomes available? And if so, is he at all an option for Kent Hughes?
Oh, my gosh. Anton Lundell would be a great option for any team in the league.
And then Franco says, would a return of an offensive D-man like Logan Mailloux be interesting to the Panthers in this scenario? They seem to lack the OD man. I wouldn't be in a rush to trade Logan. I'll tell you that.
No, I wouldn't either. But you got Reinbacker there. Like the Canadians have stuff coming. Like they're pretty good that way. But if you can get Anton Lundell, and again, Jimmy, please back me up in this. I am not reporting this.
No.
Okay, just
make
sure.
It was a question asked.
What a question from a questioner is asking.
Yeah.
And if you could ever get that player, I would be not afraid to make a move.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was during last year's playoffs, Pierre. I text you like during that series with Florida and Boston, and I was like, I don't watch this guy enough. I love him. I mean, he's great. All right, next question. Naz 26. If McDavid doesn't reach the conference final or final, why sign an extension in Edmonton?
Well,
I mean, that's up to him.
His former agent is the general manager or the president of hockey operations. They've got a relationship. His junior coach is a coach of the team. One of his best friends is Leon Draisaitl. He's built a beautiful home there and lives there and very comfortable there. I don't know, but it reminds me a lot of the Steven Stamkos stuff.
Yep.
I remember Steven saying right to me, and if he came on our show, he'd tell you the same thing. He said, Pierre, why would I leave? He told me that in November.
Mm-hmm.
November of the year that he was supposed to leave to go to Toronto. So, and he didn't leave. So.
Yep. Next question. Max R, best player that you can think of who started as a winger and became a center. It's a good question because usually it's the other way around.
That's a really good question. I got to think about that because if you're asking all time, I got to really go deep on that.
All right.
That's Jimmy. Remind me of that one, please.
Yeah, I'm writing it down now.
That's a very good question.
Okay. Next question. Postnet on 130. Any suggestions on what the Penguins will do to build around Sid and get faster and younger for next year for one more run at the Stanley Cup? They have a lot of.
They're not making another run for the Stanley Cup with Sid there. Can we be real about that?
I agree.
They're not. They're going into a rebuild. And you know what? They're accumulating a lot of draft picks. Mm-hmm. When those picks are going to be able to play, we don't know. Nobody knows. They don't know either. But are they trying to rebuild with youth? The answer is yes.
Yep.
But how many years do you think Sid's got left to play? 4, 5, 4?
Yeah, 4.
At a high level? I think I never bet against them. But do you think they'll be, ready to compete with the upper echelon of the league in 4 years? I don't know. I don't think so.
That's a big question mark. All right, next question. Renaissance Resistor. With Monty's recent play and Dobie's weaknesses being exposed, would a Fowler signing make a difference in the playoff push?
Well, I don't think so. And you know what? It's a very good question. I don't think they would put Jacob into that situation. I really don't. Not this young in his career. I could see him going right to Laval and doing really good things there. But I would be surprised, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And you know how much I think of Jacob Fowler. I just don't know if that's the right way to do it. Maybe they do it and he turns out to be great. I think one side outweighs the other in terms of what's the most prudent thing to do.
Right.
And probably the most prudent thing to do is put him in Laval.
I'm with you on that for sure. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, can we all just take a moment to laugh at everyone who thought Lane Hudson could I think you meant couldn't play in the NHL. My question is, will his brother join the Capitals this year? He could seriously improve their power play.
Well, first of all, I think Cole Hudson's going to be ready to play in the NHL after this year. Yeah, I do. I don't think he's as good as Lane, but I do think he can play in the league next year. I know he can. I watched him a lot.
Do you think they would bring him right to Washington, Pierre, or would they put him in Hershey?
No, there's no need. If he's going to go to Hershey, just keep him at BU.
Uh-huh.
You know, if he's coming out, you're putting him in the NHL. It's like I used to say about Lane. You know, when I heard all these insiders who I never saw at any BU practices or games ever say, "Oh, he's going to have to do some time in the American Hockey League." It's like the insiders that were telling me about Matthew Nyes and how Matthew Nyes was at least a year and a half in the American Hockey League. He's not ready to. And I'm like, all you people are saying this stuff. I've never seen you at the University of Minnesota. I've never seen you at a practice. Like, I don't know where, and they can get mad at me all they want. I don't care. Like, if you're going to make those kind of comments, at least be relevant. Be at the practices. Be at the games. You know, don't take it because somebody wrote on the internet that, oh, he might not be ready to play.
Well, I'll be at Boston College practice tomorrow, Pierre. So
I know. Getting ready for the Bentley game on Friday. You're good. I know.
All right. Next question. Postnet on 130. Could Carey Price ever be a goalie coach for the Habs?
He could, but I don't see him doing that.
No.
He lives in the West. He lives in the West.
He seems really happy.
I think he's a really happy guy. I mean, I don't.
This
is one of the big, Jimmy, I've told you this before away from the microphones, and I'll tell you now. It's one of the biggest things that could potentially haunt the growth of the NHL. A lot of these players have made so much money and they've gone and they're happy in their life. You know, they got great families and they're happy with they don't want to go through this. They don't want to go on the road and scout. They don't want to go and you know, be skill development coaches. Now, the guys that haven't made as much money, they still need to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to live a comfortable lifestyle and they know they can't do that unless they work. So those guys are still, I don't see a lot of star players getting into the meat and potatoes part of hockey. It's kind of gone away for the last little while.
It has, for sure. By the way, Habinations disagrees. He thinks that if Fowler came to the Habs, to Montreal, he'd have a chance to have that experience and ride the plane. Habination, one thing I would say is, why not give him that experience with Laval, who's likely going for a deeper run than the Canadians in the playoffs? I said likely, and get him around that atmosphere.
Hey, he's allowed to just be all he wants. And so what happens when he gets lit up for 5 in a game that might affect whether they make the playoffs or not? What are the fans thinking about him? What's his summer going to look like? Mm-hmm. I you know what? Honestly, I have no issue at all with somebody disagreeing with us. I think it's great. We'll see how it plays out. I remember some guy went on the air and said, Pierre McGuire, like, what's he talking about on Lane Hudson? I heard it on Nolan's show. They played the tape for me. I said, I don't know who that person is. But I can tell you one thing right now. I've never seen him in a BU game, and I've never seen him in a BU practice.
Yeah.
So we'll see who's right or wrong.
Yeah. I know who it is.
So I don't mind if you disagree with me.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Good. Bring it on.
All right. Next question. Alex Evanowski. You know I love Yzerman. However, the Wings fan base have the torches out for him. What's something you think he and the Wings can do to help speed up the rebuild before it's too late for him?
I thought they could have done something at the trade deadline this year.
Yeah.
First of all, they're set up to do well.
I think next year is the year.
Set up, but people are expecting last year. And what hurt them last year, Jimmy, and nobody wants to hear excuses, but I'm going to tell you, because I watch every one of their games.
Okay.
When they lost Dylan Larkin for 2.5 weeks, their season was over.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they missed the playoffs. And people can say whatever they want. You go look at the record. That's why they missed the playoffs. You look at this year. They made a coaching change. It really gave them a bump. You got to give them credit. Give them a bump. But
even Derek Lawan admitted that on our show, their former coach.
But the goaltending's been marginal.
That's where I was going to go up here.
And it's a problem. And so now they got another hole they're going to have to plug.
Yeah. Pierre, do you think the fact that they have so many goaltending, or not so many, but they have 2 really good young up-and-coming goaltenders below the NHL, maybe, you know, cause Stevie to hold back from acquiring a better goaltender now? You know, that he didn't have to he didn't want to commit to a goalie now because he knows those guys are coming. So he said, we'll take a gamble with the mid-grade type guys to be stopgaps here and it just backfired. That's
They
kind of
they got three prospects because the guy in Toledo, Carter Guylander, is really good too.
I forgot about him. Yeah.
So they're in first place in their division in the East Coast Hockey League, and they're a good team. They're a really good team. So again, none of the insiders can go down to that level to go watch, so they don't care. You see what I'm saying, Jimmy? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. Yesterday, I put the wrong age of more 16-year-olds playing junior. It should have been 15-year-olds. Over time,
It's okay.
Okay, Ron. I think you start seeing that more. Do you?
Probably. I think there are two groups that are going to have to figure out the age thing. One is going to be major junior, and the other one's going to be the prep schools.
Mm-hmm.
Those, because if they don't, there's going to be a problem long term for both of them.
All right. Next question. Ethan Russell. Do you think Jimmy Snuggerud will join the Blues lineup after they lose?
No, lose to UMass because he's a UMass guy.
I like Ethan.
I'm not touching that because I like both sides. I like Motzko at Minnesota, and I like Carver.
I'll do it because I'm fine with it. Yeah, he'll be in St. Louis in a couple days. All right, next question. Well, that I kind of backfired though. He could be in St. Louis for another reason. Randy Workman, talk it to the Flyers next season. What do you think? I kind of mentioned that to Pierre. I said if everything fell into place, you never know. If he doesn't go back to Vancouver and Tortorella doesn't go back to Philly, I could see it happening. But
I want John. I have so much respect for both guys. You know that, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. I just want John, because of his years of service and all he's done as a coach, I believe you get to call your own shot.
Yeah.
And I'd like for him, if he chooses not to coach, I'd like for him to say, I choose not to coach. Mm-hmm. If he wants to keep coaching and they say, okay, if you want to coach, we'd like you to think about doing this, this, and this, then maybe it works. That's going to be a hard one to decipher. But I like people that have put their life and heart and soul into this thing, which he's done, to get the opportunity after so many glorious years of service to get to call his own shot. And you know what I think of Rick Tocchet. Would he be an elite coach in Philadelphia? Yeah, he's an elite coach in Vancouver. He would. I'll tell you what, there are not a lot of coaches that could go to Philadelphia and sell season ticket packages.
That's what I was going to just say.
He can. He can.
He would do a lot more than just coach for them. All right, next question. Excuse me, Ian Lewis. Guys, what do you think Alex Newhook's ceiling is? He looks far better at 2C, but the numbers don't beat it out. Can he be the stopgap until Hage? I don't see it, but you know him way better.
I think Newhook's going to be a very good third-line winger for the Montreal Canadiens long term. That's what I think. I think they're also going to probably get in the market and try to get a second-line center. So, depending on who they have to move to try to get that, it'll be interesting. There's two things Montreal needs to look at right now. They definitely need a second center. They know that. And they still need depth on defense. They know that too. Even though they've got some in-house stuff coming, those would be the two organizational needs they have.
All right, next question. Hey, thoughts on Dylan Cousins for a fit in Ottawa? It's been great.
He was a good fit in Buffalo too.
Yeah, we don't understand what the rush.
I don't understand the whole thing, but he's been very good in Ottawa.
He's been awesome.
He's been great in Ottawa.
All right, next question. Ron LaRoque, Pierre, where do you see the state of hockey at grassroots level? Everything is just so expensive, travel, equipment, etc. You're 100% right, Ron. It's not
ice time is crazy. I know a rink owner that has to charge just to pay his expenses $625 an hour. How you running programs on that? It's crazy. One of the things that worries me, and I shouldn't be worried, but it does because I care a lot about the game.
Exactly.
A lot of the European stuff is taxpayer subsidized. Whether it's in Finland, whether it's in Sweden, whether it's in Russia, their programs are subsidized. So we don't really have that here in North America. So it's a different experience. And so their numbers aren't shrinking for hockey. Ours for women's hockey are going up. Jimmy, I think I sent you those numbers that I was fortunate enough to get. The women are going up. The men are kind of like, they're not going down. They're kind of like,
they're just level,
but inching a little down. You know what I mean? So that's the issue. But Ron's point is spot on. It concerns me. Yes, I'm concerned about it.
I know, like when I was growing up here in Mass, I don't know if you probably heard them because you coached here for a while. The MDC rinks, remember those?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like why'd they get rid of that?
Why don't you ask your mayor?
That's what I'll do. Because some things you said, they talking about Europe there. I mean, I think that would help if they did that again here.
You know, like I'm looking out on the lake where I grew up pretty much with my brothers, my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And we would steal baked potatoes out of my mother's kitchen that were in tin foil so we could play it down on the lake. Didn't cost anything. Maybe, I don't know, the potato might have been 25 cents. I don't know. But we go down there and skate all the time. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
It didn't cost anything. You can't do that anymore.
Nope. No, I'm with you on that. All right. We got any more? Energize. I've really liked the Cousins pickup and his connection with Batherson.
Yeah.
With Cousins into the mix in the sense having Stephen or Stefan.
Stephen Holiday from Ohio State.
To be a potential 3C. Would Shane Pinto become expandable specifically for a young right-handed defenseman?
I wouldn't be interested to trade Shane Pinto. I get it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Wise Buffalo and a rush to trade Dylan Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
It would depend. It would from where I sit, it would really depend on the caliber of the right defenseman you were getting and the age, because you don't want it to be an older guy. Pinto's a good player. He's not even close to maxing out. Not even close to maxing out. And coachable, good person, somebody you want in your organization. I can't say enough good things about that person.
All right. Next question. We got any more? Max R, with how the Blues were hitting, does that mean they're not afraid of Jack Guy? Does he need to fight more often or play more aggressively?
I don't think guys aren't afraid in the NHL.
Yeah.
They might be intimidated, but they're not afraid. To get there, listen, if you get a paycheck to play hockey, it doesn't matter the level. You're not afraid of too much.
Yeah.
Like to get there is hard. So I wouldn't say afraid. I would say that, Arbor didn't have a lot of dance partners. I can look at their roster. Like they really don't have anybody that's going to be, a fighter. Nathan Walker's 5'8" compared to,
Right.
Arbor 6'4". He's not going to fight him. I mean, as hard a hitter as Nathan Walker is, he's not Stan Jonathan when it comes to fighting. He just isn't. So that's, there wasn't a dance partner for him.
I kind of feel bad for Arbor too, Pierre, because I remember when, he came up and he's doing is fighting, and everyone's like, oh, you got to do more with your game than just that. And so he starts to do that and hone his craft and add more elements to his game and practice it. And now it's like, oh, well, you're not fighting enough. Well, I mean, what do you want from the guy? Like, just let him develop.
I agree with you. That's sensible. Very good.
And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to knock the question.
No.
I'm sincerely feel for him because I see the critiques of him and I'm like, the guy is young. He's still maturing. And
well, this is the biggest problem. Like they didn't want to understand the development process.
Right.
And I understand because most people don't have to go through it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Sidney Crosbys out there. There just aren't a lot of guys like Christopher Pronger. They're just not.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys have to go through 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of development before they even get a sniff in the league.
Exactly.
It's an amazing mental and physical test to be an NHL player.
Like I had somebody today on Twitter, Pierre, when I was talking about college free agents, and he said, do you think the Bruins have a bad rep right now? And that's why not many free agents will sign here, because they don't give their young kids a chance in the NHL. They don't call them up enough. And I said, maybe the kids aren't ready. Do you ever think of that? Like,
Yeah, I don't think they have a bad rep.
It just seems like such a rep.
I think, to be fair, I think the Bruins have misidentified some players.
Right. Maybe these players aren't NHL caliber.
I think they've misidentified guys, but I don't think if a player was good enough, they would play up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that looks like it's it for the questions. We want to thank Andy Strickland. By the way, he just messaged Pierre. He said, I just want to tell you and Pierre, thank you. I got cut off as I was trying to thank you there, but he said, I really appreciate you coming on. I had a lot of fun.
He was great. He was a lot of fun. He's so knowledgeable. What I appreciate about Andy is he does the work.
Oh, yeah.
He's not the guy sitting at home scrawling underneath saying, oh, what are they saying on the internet? Maybe I'll take that from one of my own scoops.
Yeah.
You're not that guy. He's in the rink, because for a lot of years, I did a lot of games in St. Louis. That guy was always working. Yep. He was always working. I got a lot of time for him, a lot of respect.
Yeah, so big thanks to Andy for joining us. Thanks to you, the listeners and viewers, and for everyone that asked questions, as you always do. And thanks to our great staff up in Montreal with the Sick Podcast Network. Tomorrow, Pierre, we will be pre-recording, guest to be determined in the morning.
Our guest is good. Our guest is good. We just have to make sure we can catch him between plane rides, but hopefully we can get him.
And also, though, our live guest tomorrow, we can confirm this, will be Columbus Blue Jackets General Manager Don Waddell. Really looking forward to chatting with Don here on the eye test, talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets. So you won't want to miss that one. Join us here. But until then, this has been another edition of the eye test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the eye test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.